Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here for the launch of the catalog for Healing 2. Here's the catalog, and I'm really happy to have it in my hand. It's a great treat for myself, and I'm really, really grateful for all the panelists who have joined us. And for this launch, the title of our talk is "What is Performance Art for Me? A casual conversation amongst practitioners." And I'd like to begin by talking a little bit about Healing 2. Healing 2 was part of the Corona Chronicles for me, and it's sort of a diary for me for the pandemic. And it was interesting, after Trojan Donkey, I felt this tremendous need to do a performative work of my own, and Adam Fahy-Majeed was my curator for it. And I would like to read you a small excerpt from the catalog, and I need to find it from my essay. Healing 2 was set in a time of plague. It was part of my Corona Chronicles. They were comprised of 3 shows that I co-curated, as well as this performance work. Lal Jadoo, Red Magic, and the Trojan Donkey preceded Healing 2. If These Walls Could Talk occurred after it in August. Everybody knows that pestilences have a way of reoccurring in the world, yet somehow we find it hard to believe in ones that crash down on our heads from a blue sky, wrote Albert Camus in his novel, The Plague. I, like the town people of Vhan, found it hard to believe that the virus had come home. I began reading this book soon after Lal Jadoo, Red Magic, and it resonated with me. That being pervasive in these times, I could not help think of an earlier performance work, The Healing, that I presented 3 years after the murder of my parents and the maid by the recently hired driver and his accomplice. This work took place at a memorial for Ali Imam at the Beach Luxury Hotel in Karachi in front of a large audience. Imam was not only one of the most important gallerists of Pakistan, but also a very close friend of both my father and mother. In The Healing, I had my head ritually shaved and surrounded myself with people who were close to me. In Islam and in Hinduism, a baby's head is shaved 7 days after birth. In the second iteration of my work, I did the same. The location was the roof of my gallery, a space both private and public for me. However, this time there were no viewers other than the people who documented the work in stills and video, who were under strict instructions not to interrupt. I wanted the performance to occur only once and be captured in a single take. There's a tenuous zone of belief when one enters when doing a performance. It is a submission to the energy of the moment. A metamorphosis occurs, and there is a oneness with the objects you wear. There is no separation, and they become part of your body. Healing 2 was my very personal ritual, with all the participants connecting within a cosmic spider's web. I'm really grateful to the participants who joined in this endeavor with me. There was Zarmeena Shah, Adam Fahy-Majeed, Sara Vaqar Pagganwala, Muhammad Usama Saeed, and Sanki King. Now I would like Adam, if possible, to play the video of Healing 2.
Such were the sights and apprehensions that kept alive in our townspeople their feeling of exile and separation. In this connection, the narrator is well aware how regrettable is his inability to record at this point something of a really spectacular order, some heroic feat or memorable deed like those that thrill us in the chronicles of the past. The truth is that nothing is less sensational than pestilence, and by reason of their very duration, great misfortunes are monotonous. In the memories of those who lived through them, the grim days of the plague do not stand out like vivid flames, ravenous and inextinguishable, beaconing a troubled sky, but rather like the slow, deliberate progress of some monstrous thing crushing out all upon its path. No, the real plague had nothing in common with the grandiose imaginings that had haunted Guyot's mind at its outset. It was above all a shrewd, unflagging adversary, a skilled organizer doing his work thoroughly and well. That, it may be said in passing, is why, so as not to play false to the facts, and still more so as not to play false to himself, the narrator has aimed at objectivity. He has hardly made any changes for the sake of artistic effect, except those elementary adjustments needed to present his narrative in a more or less coherent form. It cannot be denied that even this distress was coming to lose something of its poignancy. Was it that our fellow citizens, even those who had felt the parting from their loved ones most keenly, were getting used to doing without them? To assume this would fall somewhat short of the truth. It would be more correct to say that they were wasting away emotionally as well as physically. At the beginning of the plague, they had a vivid recollection of the absent ones and bitterly felt their loss. But though they could clearly recall the face, the smile, and voice of the beloved, and this or that occasion when, as they now saw in retrospect, they had been supremely happy, they had trouble in picturing what he or she might be doing at the moment when they conjured up these memories, in a setting so hopelessly remote. In short, at these moments, memory played its part, but their imagination failed them. During the second phase of the plague, their memory failed them too. Not that they had forgotten the face itself, but what came to the same thing, it had lost fleshly substance, and they no longer saw it in memory's mirror. Thus, while the first weeks they were apt to complain that only shadows remained to them of what their love had been and meant, they now came to learn that even shadows can waste away, losing the faint hues of life that memory may give. And by the end of their long sundering, they had also lost the power of imagining the intimacy that once was theirs, or understanding what it can be to live with someone whose life is wrapped up in yours. In this respect, they had adapted themselves to the very condition of the plague, all the more potent for its mediocrity. None of us was capable any longer of an exalted emotion. All had trite, monotonous feelings. It's high time it stopped, people would say, because in times of calamity the obvious thing is to desire its end. And in fact they wanted it to end. But when making such remarks, we felt none of the passionate yearning or fierce resentment of the early phase. We merely voiced one of the few clear ideas that lingered in the twilight of our minds. The furious revolt of the first weeks had given place to a vast despondency, not to be taken for resignation, though it was nonetheless a sort of passive and provisional acquiescence.
Thank you all for sitting through my performance. It was something I had to do. I spent a month creating the objects for it, and it was something like everything else in my life. I just had to do it at that time. The title of the celebration for my launch is really not about my performance, but about all these wonderful 9 people I've collected around me. And I'm just so happy that you have all joined in this conversation. The title of this talk is, What is Performance Art for Me? And this is supposed to be a casual conversation. I'm going to sort of give an informal introduction, and then my curator, Adam Fahy-Majeed, will give the formal introductions. Niverda, I first met in Paris when I was there for a residency at Cité des Arts, and I wanted to do a performative, a curated performative evening, a happening. And I saw Niverda from across the hall, and I was just drawn to this woman from Mauritius and her energy. And not only is she a performance artist, but she's a very fine painter. Alexandre Bavard is also someone I ran into in Paris. He is very interested in choreographed performative works with costumes, and I remember him very kindly inviting me to the Pompidou Center where he was showing his work. Vhan, Olsen, Dombo, unfortunately I have not met, but I inshallah will meet one day, because I have to meet this poet, academic, this energy And the power of his work is just incredible. Li Wei, again, I've not met. But, you know, over time, I've curated his work time and time again, and there's this great sense of freedom. I mean, when I see his work, my spirit soars. Sara Vaqar Pagganwala is someone I've been with and have curated the Corona Chronicles with. We did Lal Jadoo together, me and Sara, then me, Adam Fahy-Majeed, and Sara Vaqar Pagganwala curated Trojan Donkey, and then me and Sara Pagganwala curated If These Walls Could Talk for the Corona Chronicles. And not only have I worked with her as a curator, but I've curated her as an artist. Umme Farwa is a woman from Lahore, very brave, and her work for Lal Jadoo was absolutely mind-blowing. And she surrounded herself in red pigment, kind of almost trapping herself within this incredible sea of red. Kasim Shaheen, I met many a moons ago in Karachi, in another time, in another place, in a world far, far, far away. And I just remember being enamored with the performative works he showed, and then he continued with his incredible career and has done so much. Sheehan, a man I met in Liverpool, a Liverpudlian, as they say. And I remember I discovered him when I was going through the Liverpool Biennale, trying to scout out artists for the Karachi Biennale, of which I was chief curator of. And I remember watching his video, and it just made me laugh and laugh and laugh. It was the most ironic take on America. And last but not least, Satadru Sovan. And Satadru I discovered through Facebook and the internet, and his incredible energy that he puts not only in his work, but tries to bring performative artists from all the world, over the world, under his platform. And I hope I get it right. It's Hexi, it is Hexi Duxa Box. And it's incredible because the energy he puts behind it to bring people together. And I would just like to end my informal introductions by saying all our hearts right now are with India. My mother is from Bombay. Then it was called Bombay, now it's known as Mumbai. But all our hearts and our minds and our prayers are for the great nation of India. And, you know, inshallah, this too shall pass. And all our prayers are with you. So I will hand the floor over to my wonderful curator, Niverda, Adam Fahy-Majeed. See, Niverda is always on my mind. She's a magic woman. But I will hand the floor over to Adam Fahy-Majeed, who will introduce everybody, Paka. There you go, Adam.
Yeah, and so I'm just going to introduce each one of you, and if you'd like to talk about your performative practice, no, I mean, that's how, yeah, exactly. So first on the list, as Amin is saying, she's always on his mind. It's Niverda Alleck, and she's born in Mauritius in 1975 and trained at the Michaelis School of Fine Art and the University of Cape Town, South Africa, and the Glasgow School of Art, Scotland. Based in Mauritius, she addresses the human subject in multiple contexts using a range of media and art forms. Niverda.
Hi. I mean, why are you starting with me? I'm not ready yet.
It's alphabetical, and your name is Alleck.
Quite a bit of time. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you should give me a hint. Where do you want to? What do you want us to discuss?
Well, it's really about what is performance art for me. What is performance?
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, for me, performance is not my main practice. I do it when I find myself at, you know, like against a wall.
Right.
I need change. I need a fundamental change in me. And it just happens then that at that time, I use performance as a means to maybe to elevate or to change direction or for things to make sense because of the performative act of the body, because performance at the same time is looking at truth in my life. I use rituals that I've learned throughout my life through my mother, her mother, my family, because I come from a Hindu family. There's 1,000 rituals in our family. I also come from a multicultural country. We have people from every type of religion on this island. So we know each other's religions, we know each other's rituals and practices. So that starts to get infused in me. You know, I use that at that time, bits and pieces from here and there, things that I've learned in books, stories, everything merged together in my mind and become a sort of reality that I deal with in the performance. It's usually events that trigger it. As I said earlier, it's those moments in my life where I need a transition of some sort. And usually my main practice being painting and installation. I find it, sometimes it joins things, you know, from my, I do very meticulous paintings. And then sometimes I need to paint myself. I need to paint my own body. I need to move physically in a space. And that's when it comes into play. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful response.
Yes, in a way that, I mean, I completely relate to you. I mean, my body of work, I'm a copper bronze worker. I'm an object maker. And yes, but you know, and sometimes you just need, there's this inner urge to put your body out there, to work with the body itself. And yes, there's an element of freedom and exhilaration in that act.
Yeah.
There are some really remarkable parallels between your work, and I remember seeing at Coupe d'un Soir, One Night Stand, you were kind of activating an installation in a very ritualistic way, but I've seen in healing too. I was part of as a participant, I saw Amin do a very similar thing, and studying his work a lot recently, I've seen him kind of ritualistically activate these objects. It's a very interesting part of his practice, in my opinion. And I see that parallel a lot.
Yeah, I think it's easy. We come from the same DNA background. So somehow we are joined, you know.
Joined.
So, yeah, I mean, in Pakistan and India, you know, it goes as far back as that. When people populated Mauritius, there was no divide between Pakistan and India at that time. So I can totally relate to your practices, which is, it's become universal for me. You know, I go everywhere. There's if I go to a few years ago, no, it was 10 years ago already. I went to Mali and in this place called Segu, the Niger River goes through it. And they have a practice similar to what we practice here in Mauritius, which is to offer milk in a sacred lake. And they were doing that too there. You know, it's like little things. And then that's where the dots get joined by seeing things that are similar. They would invoke spirits, and it's the same, you know, when we do that practice, it's like for Shiva. So somewhere it's the same thing. It's just a matter when you're studying cultures, when you're studying other people, to see the similarities in our practices. So I think that's why, you know, Amin and me, we gel.
Yeah, and you know, everything is connected, right, Niverda? Everything connects. And you come from a very interesting perspective of Mauritius, because it's a step removed from South Asia, where you're on this island where everybody really does have to live together and cohabit as a small island, and culturally kind of like not come together, but at least be very aware of each other and the spaces in between. And I find that fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, it's also visually, we looked similar, you know.
No, you're much better looking, Niverda. I wish I looked like you, girl. Are you kidding me? Next lifetime, ugly janam.
Yes. In my practice, you know, it's all about studying people from other cultures, you know, throughout my paintings. That's all what it is. So I get drawn to people who have this, this desire, this need to share as well. So that's where the learning actually takes place, is when I'm meeting other people, and whenever I'm talking to them, there's things that come up in the conversation, certain phrases, certain allusions to their childhood, certain practices. And whenever it makes sense, whenever it resonates in me, I keep it on the side, like, you know, in a little notebook, internal in my mind. And then it comes out sometimes.
The global mythology, right? All of myths can be interwoven together into a tapestry. Adam?
Okay, that was wonderful. That was really beautiful. Okay, so Alexandre Bavard
Is he here?
Is he here?
Hello, everyone.
Yes, yes.
Oh, there you are, baby. Are you gonna take up your shirt?
Alexandre Bavard is based in Paris and is an alumnus of École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts de Lyon. De Lyon. Sorry. Alexandre Bavard can be seen as a playwright and performer in one. His work expands from fine art, sculpture, prints, and paintings into video, music, and dance.
Yeah. So for me, the practice of the performance is something I start like maybe 5 years ago. And, you know, I'm a graffiti artist, basically. And in parallel, I make some studies in art school. But when I'm thinking about that, I think that the first performance I did was in the street, by just the way that I'm making graffiti. I am a graffiti artist and I like it in an illegal way. I mean, what I like in this practice of the graffiti is to go on the street, on the rooftop, on the subway, on the metro, and to make art, to make with the spray cans graffiti. So basically, I consider this act as a performance. And after I was like thinking that it would be nice also to speak about this energy of the graffiti, and I start to make like I would like to say proper performance in museum, gallery, and it starts very basically as an happening when I was making when I was making exhibitions. And I start to perform in the gallery. Then after it's become performance. And more now I am interested in the way of to make like a show, like you know, to write a scenario, to work with some dancer, and more also I am very interested in the costumes and all the way you can use, you know, the cotton, the fabrics, and to play with. So. Yeah, I would like to say that I'm very interested now also to speak about this energy that comes from the streets, and to use it in a different way, and all start for me from the graffiti. So yeah, this is my DNA, I would like to say.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, Alexandre, meeting you, and I was drawn towards your physicality, your sheer physicality, your sense of presence.
Yeah.
You know, I could feel you, and I could feel your energy there. It was incredible. And I remember you talking about your very choreographed performative works, and how important costumes and choreography and the whole scenario around it was for you, but just your energy itself was really attractive and seductive.
I think the connection with graffiti is very, very interesting, and part of your performance, Amin, was of course having Sanki paint your body,
Right.
and that
graffiti artist.
Exactly, who's also a graffiti artist. So I feel like, and also an interesting part of the performative practice is how public and private it is. For instance, this performance, even Healing too, whilst it was completely private, we had a wonderful drone kind of making that video, and people were looking at that like, what's going on up there, you know, like what's happening in that strange rooftop up there.
Yeah, and what I like also is like, you know, when you perform in the street and you are making a graffiti by day, this is like a show, you know. You are doing something illegal on a wall, for example, or on the gate of a supermarket, and you have all these feelings of the streets. You have some people who will say, "Oh, I like what you do." Some will just spit on you, say, "Well, what are you doing?" You have the stress of the police. You have the adrenaline, and this is what I like in this experience of the graffiti. And the bridge that you make with the contemporary art world, it was something like that. I wanted to keep this energy. This is the most interesting things for me, is to keep this energy and to bring it to the public and to the audience. And I always ask myself, oh, I can recreate this kind of same energy as in the streets. So this is the main things in my performance practice.
I remember what you did for Trojan Donkey, Alexandre. And
yes,
there was really a dance-like quality to the whole video. It seemed like you almost had become part of the wall you were painting. There was a wonder to it, and that is beautiful, really, really beautiful.
Thank you, Amin, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so, yeah. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. I'm done.
It's a natural conversation, Alex.
No, please.
Yeah, and also, you know, this is more and more. You know, I would like to say that you know, I like to perform for sure, but more and more, I think I consider more myself as a, I would like to say, like someone who will work. I don't consider myself as a choreographer, but more and more I want to take you know, more decision and work in the direction that I make some art direction, and this is so this is the next step for me. The next move is you know, to work with dancer, actors, and maybe, you know, be more into the direction part. And but for sure, the most important is also to share, you know, because I don't have like a practice as I am, you know, working in the studio and the ideas come like that. So for me, I am every time, for example, my studio practice is just, you know, I go there is like for the production. But all the ideas and everything is like, you know, in my everyday life, it's come and it's appear. And I feel that, well, it's always with when you share some moments with people that you know, ideas project become to life, as we do right now with our meeting. You know, this is the most interesting things is to share, for sure, share between artists, and also share with the public and the audience at the end. This is the goal. So this is what I like also about performance. It's about sharing moments with other artists with different medium, and to create something huge, fantastic all together. So yeah, that's it.
There's something wonderful about sharing one's body, isn't it? There is something wonderful about that. I think body should be shared. Adam.
So next up we have Vhan, Olsen, Dombo in between Congo, Brazzaville, and France. Is a performer, actor, rapper, and poet. He's published 2 texts, Les eaux parleurs de remords The Loudspeakers of Remorse, 2018, Passage Editions. Le Croix Sacré de Dieu déchu, The Sacred Coitus of the Fallen Gods, and Le Bruit de Mancina Editions, 2016. Vhan, the floor is yours.
Okay, I have my English is very bad. I would like just to speak in French.
Holy cow! Okay, okay, sure. Niverda, can you translate?
Or Alexandre or Niverda, can someone translate?
Yeah, I can try. Let's do it.
Voilà, je vais peut-être parler. Enfin, c'est dommage, je n'arrive pas à partager mon écran et voilà. Donc, au fait, à propos de la pratique de l'art performance, enfin, moi, l'art performance, je l'ai pratiqué au Congo et au Cameroun. C'est vrai que dans une certaine période, en l'art performance, c'était un peu tout ce qui ne pouvait pas être nommé, tout ce qui n'avait pas de genre précis. Et à une certaine période, dans les années en 2011, il y avait des comédiens, parce que moi, à la base, je suis comédien, j'écris de la poésie, j'écris de la poésie, je fais du théâtre aussi. Et donc, la performance au Congo, voilà, c'était lorsque des artistes de différentes disciplines tenter de créer ensemble, enfin de fusionner, de travailler ensemble pour créer une autre forme plus hybride et que nous on appelait art performance, sans tout le temps savoir que c'était de la performance. Et puis moi, en 2015, je suis parti du Congo. Je ne sais pas si on parvient à traduire.
Amin, should I translate everything? It's a bit long, but
that would be wonderful if you can, please.
Fuck. I'm a bit lost, to be honest. But okay. So he comes from Congo, and if I understand well, for him, performance was more like a box for the people who you don't know how to describe the practice that they have. And it could be a lot of different things. And yeah, this is the only things I remember. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, you can continue and I will translate more frequently.
Okay.
Come from the theater works. And yes, that's important.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Because we want to hear you, Vhan. It's very important. Yes.
Allô?
Yeah.
Ouais, tu peux continuer, ouais.
Ok, je peux continuer, d'accord. Ok, et donc moi, en 2015, je me retrouve au Cameroun parce que, parti en exil. J'étais en exil au Cameroun parce qu'effectivement, c'est une période de changement de constitution et de troisième mandat. Et donc, je vais me retrouver au Cameroun parce qu'il faut sauver ma vie et aussi avec des sympathisants, des activistes qui avaient été arrêtés, qui étaient emprisonnés. Et moi, je me retrouve au Cameroun. Et là, la performance, pour moi, en fait, devient autre chose qu'une simple pratique ou une forme qui n'a pas de nom ou tout simplement de l'art, au fait, dans l'ordre du divertissement. Et donc, j'ai des images que je voudrais partager, des photos pour essayer un peu d'étayer mon discours, aussi de préciser. Je reviens à nouveau pour ce partage, mais là j'ai l'impression que ça a l'air d'aller, mais oh là là. Voilà. Donc, il y a une performance que j'ai faite quand je suis arrivé.
Translating, please.
Pardon, allô?
Need translation.
Yeah, so in 2015, he go in Cameroon for because he was like saving his life, so it was an exile, and so performance was like something more and more important for him, and yeah, it was like become like something super important, because it was linked with the fact that you have to save his life. And pourquoi tu as dû quitter ton pays?
Parce que j'étais coordonnateur d'un mouvement citoyen qui réclamait le départ de Denis Sassou Nguesso, qui est un président, un dictateur qui est au pouvoir depuis plus de 35 ans. Et donc, il y a eu une manifestation, et à la suite de cette manifestation, il y a des arrestations. Et puis moi, je me suis retrouvé au Cameroun. Et là, j'ai continué. Pour moi, la performance, c'était une manière de continuer une certaine forme de résistance dans l'espace public au Cameroun. Et parce qu'effectivement, de cette révolution étouffée et ratée, moi, j'ai essayé de la continuer autrement à Yaoundé. Donc, j'ai fait un spectacle qui ça.
Attends, je vais déjà traduire ça. Juste une question. Et donc pour toi, la performance, elle est politique?
Non, en fait, pour moi, la performance est intimement politique. Elle est politique. On ne peut pas séparer, le politique de la performance. Et au-dessus de la performance, il y a pas un côté rituelique juste pour faire rituel, mais c'est, comment dire, en fait, en tout cas, il y a la notion de l'espace, il y a la notion du corps, il y a la notion du discours, il y a la notion de l'espace.
Ouais.
Et il y a une première performance que j'avais faite qui consiste, j'avais un drapeau, j'avais une espèce de…
Attends, déjà, peut-être que je vais traduire ça. There is a lot of information, and for him, the performance is something politics in the way that he have to exile his country, and after maybe I'm not the best translator if someone wants to help me, but the main thing is that performance is politic for him, because it's a way to fight, because he had in his country he had a revolution, and there is like some protest, and after that the dictator he had to escape his country for his political convictions, and performance is I would like to it's something that he continue, and it's linked with the protest that he did and the revolution he did in his country.
Ok. Donc voilà, j'ai fait une performance qui s'appelait 242 km de rêve brûlé, où j'avais en plein rond-point, dans un rond-point à Yaoundé, j'avais un drapeau du Congo.
In Yaoundé, he make a performance and he had a flag.
Voilà, et avec un seau d'eau en plein rond-point, avec des voitures qui passaient tout autour.
With a lot of cars around him, and he had tu avais de l'eau?
Oui, j'avais de l'eau et j'avais aussi un savon, un frottoir, et je suis douché en plein rond-point avec ce drapeau. Et puis effectivement, il y a tout. Il y a des mouvements de corps. C'était comme pour moi une manière de me purifier.
Okay, so he make a performance. He was like taking a shower in the middle of the street with the car all around him, and it was a way to to clean himself.
De me purifier de la dictature. Et pour moi, la question de la performance, elle est toujours à cet endroit, c'est-à-dire que de ce corps qui est un matériau.
For him, the body is a material that he uses.
Comme une matière plastique, que moi j'ai
like a plastic medium, yeah.
Voilà. Et j'ai fait une autre performance où dans un quartier à Yaoundé, où
In Yaoundé, you make another performance.
Voilà, où j'étais en train de déconstruire le rituel. J'étais en train de déconstruire un certain nombre de rituels que j'avais recensés. Et ça se passait dans un quartier avec des notables, des chefs coutumiers qui connaissaient bien ce que j'étais en train de poser comme acte sur l'espace public. Et j'avais une espèce de puneux que je brûlais et je me posais dans les flammes pendant que le puneux brûlait. Et
So the second performance was like in a noble's bourgeois district, and he was like burning a wheel.
Voilà. Et en essayant de traîner, j'avais posé, en essayant de traîner un box, enfin une espèce de contreplaqué sur lequel j'avais posé tout le puneux qui brûlait et de tirer ce puneux-là le long de la rue. Et puis, ça avait créé de la panique dans ce quartier parce qu'effectivement, j'avais été traité de sorcier parce que
So the people of the district say he was a sorcerer because he made this performance.
Parce que je déconstruisais effectivement un rituel et en le déconstruisant de trouver la part artistique moi qui m'intéressait et de pouvoir
so people were seeking that about him because it was a traditional ritual.
Voilà. Et voilà, donc, et puis il y a eu tout un certain nombre de performances que j'ai eu à faire et aussi des espèces de réveillons littéraires où de 20h à 9h du matin, on lisait des textes, plusieurs textes de 20h dans un quartier entouré des habitants du quartier. Et après, avec une pause.
So there is another performance. He was reading a text from 8 o'clock to 9 with people of the district.
Voilà. Et voilà. Et là, par exemple, la performance est dans un sens où le corps est… Parce que moi, j'ai vraiment… La question du corps est très importante dans ma pratique de…
The body is super important in my performance practice.
Et autant pour quand j'écris des textes en tant qu'auteur, en tant que dramaturge, autant en tant que performeur. Et là, dans ce réveillon, ce qu'on appelait dans ce réveillon littéraire, c'était de tenir, au fait, c'était de tenir pendant toute une nuit à lire un texte dans une rue. On a posé une table dans une rue avec des chaises. Il y avait des gens tout autour c'était en période de 31 décembre, donc dans la période de la nuit du 31 au 1er.
So this performance when he was reading all night long was December 31.
Et puis, il y avait des moments très importants où le public, enfin, les habitants du quartier, c'est un quartier dans les banlieues de Yaoundé. Et c'était ce qui était intéressant.
The performance was in the suburb of Yaoundé.
Et comment est-ce que le passage se fait, la transmission se fait, et comment est-ce que les artistes parviennent à laisser la place aux habitants et qui continuent la lecture. Et c'est
So the people of the streets in this suburb was inviting to read and to be part of the performance also.
Voilà. Et pour finir, il y a la performance que j'avais présentée pendant la période de confinement, qui s'appelait Ligne parallèle.
During the lockdown, he made another performance who was called Parallel Line.
Voilà, où effectivement, il était là cette fois-ci, ça se passait à Paris,
Paris.
C'était à Montreuil pendant le confinement, le premier confinement. Je me suis revu dans les mêmes étapes de dictature ou de ville morte ou de guerre au Congo.
So he was in Montreuil, it's in the suburb of Paris, and during the first lockdown, he had this feeling that the lockdown remember him the dictature of his home country.
Ouais, et aussi de dictature aussi au Cameroun parce que voilà.
And the dictature in Cameroun also.
Aussi, et pour moi en fait la performance devient en fait la traversée, surtout pour cette performance ligne parallèle. C'est comment est-ce qu'on parvient à se surpasser, à se traverser par le souvenir du corps. Et aussi avec cette période de confinement, avec la ville déserte et autres, enfin cette performance où j'utilise vachement le corps, où voilà, où le corps doit passer par un certain nombre d'étapes.
So the body, the performance was to speak about how the body reacts to the souvenir, to the remember of all these feelings about his the dictature in his country.
Voilà. Et aussi, au fait, moi, dans la pratique de prête de performance, il n'y a rien qui est établi, au fait, avant de me lancer, de faire une performance. Je sais que j'ai un discours, je sais que j'ai des accessoires, je sais que j'ai aussi un corps comme accessoire et j'ai un espace. Il y a aussi la question du public qui est très importante parce que en tant que performeur, je ne peux pas enfin, en tout cas, dans ce que j'entends, dans ce que je pratique, il n'y a pas l'idée, il n'y a pas la préparation. La préparation se fait sur le moment. C'est-à-dire
I consider performance as something very spontaneous, and I'm using some accessories, and mainly my body is the principal things that I use in my performance.
Voilà. Donc, voilà, c'est ça que je pourrais dire voilà, à propos de la question. Quelle est la performance?
No, Vhan, I remember what you gave for the Trojan Donkey and your performance, the video you gave us, and you could feel this fight, this physical, you're talking about fighting against tyranny and breaking barriers and the human spirit, and you could feel it in that performance where you were marching forward and sort of like there was a sense of like liberation and fight in you, and it was so powerful, man. It was so powerful.
Thanks. J'ai pas compris, faut pas traduire, j'ai compris à moi.
Il a dit que ta performance était très forte et très incarnée et on pouvait ressentir en fait ce que tu évoquais, quoi.
Ouais, merci.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It was fantastic. It was really fantastic. You could really this fight against tyranny, the fight, I mean, on all different levels. What is wonderful about it was it could be taken on a myriad of levels, many levels.
Il y avait plusieurs degrés de lecture et pour lui, il ressentait en fait que tu te battais contre la tyrannie.
Ouais.
Adam?
Yes, I mean, it's a very profound kind of story, and to the struggle against tyranny in the performative practice is, I think, one of the signs of the potentiality of the discipline of expressing yourself in an embodied way and performatively. I think I really think it's an amazing story to hear, and I really appreciate both Vhan telling it and Alexandre and Niverda helping us understand. I think my French was getting good practice, so I appreciate it.
Adam?
Yeah, I try my best for the translation. And he said that il a dit que c'est une histoire très intéressante qu'est la tienne, parce que se battre contre les tyrannies, de transposer ça dans le monde de l'art par la performance, et que ce soit incarné par toi, que ce soit ton histoire personnelle, c'est quelque chose de très beau.
Thanks, Adam.
Wow.
Okay. So next up we have Li Wei, who was born in Hubei, China in 1970 and lives in Beijing. In Li Wei's artistic practice, performance art and photography intersect. Using acrobatics, props, cranes, and wires, the artist surprises the viewer with depictions of himself in postures of flight.
就是我最早因为是从这个学的是油画，所以从油画后来转到开始做这个行为艺术。因为我对行为的本身的理解，可能我现在来理解的话，可能是就是自己的一个艺术的一个建构的一个它的每一次体验和这个每一次的行动。
So你不用说太长，我先翻吧。Okay, so I studied oil painting when I was young, and then I changed my career to performance art. And for me, I think my understanding of performance art is how I experience it personally, and also how to do the actions with performance art.
所以我个人理解，其实在20多岁到30多岁的时候呢，其实我艺术思考更多是从思考社会可能会更多一些，从思考社会的层面来
讲。When I was 20 something, I think performance art for me is to think about the relationship of myself and the society.
在30和30多岁到40多岁的时候，其实就是在把自己的艺术语言的建构，还有就是这个建构自己和社会的一种关系，怎么样形成自己的一种艺术的体系。
When I was 30 something, and I started to think that how to establish my own, to create my own art language through performance art.
在40岁之后呢，其实把这个行为的艺术，其实它就是我的生活，它可能已经是可能不用更多从艺术角度，它可能就是我的生活的一种思考，就是生活而已。
And after 40, I started to think that performance art is just the life itself.
因为在很年轻的时候呢，因为那个时候你在因为我们所有的学习是一个学习的一个阶段，其实 performance 你是在反映一个社会，你在学习社会，在理解社会。所以那个时候反映的 performance 的这个行为的建构，可能更多是和社会的一种关系。我提出社会中的一些问题，和社会的一种关系啊。
When I was young,
full screen.
Sorry?
Screen. Can you put full screen?
你打成全屏，因为你把它变成全屏。
Downstairs.
在下面有一个键，对，你把它变成全屏，左边，右边，再右边一个，再右边，对，再右边，点右边，不是，你看到那个就是声音的地方，不有一个加减号吗？在加减号的左边不有一个小的图标吗？
这个吗？
我再往左，再往左。再往左，对，这个键你点一下。
这个吗？不是，
就是你 就是下面那个键，就是下面刚才那个键，你点一下它就变成全屏了。右边，再往右一个，第3个。
Sorry.
对，你点一下。
Is it always performances themselves?
Thank you.
太可以了，现在可以了。It's fine now, I think.
对，因为这个是从我个人的一种做行为艺术的一个这个过程里面的一个总结的一个理解啊。
So I think for me is I think performance for me is a learning process, and I started to think that it's a kind of relationship of myself and the society.
对，这个是最早在20多岁的时候是做的这个镜子的一个系列，所以这个镜子。
And this is the mirror series I did when I was very young, when I was 20 something. So it's the early series of my work.
对，这个镜子呢是大概是1米乘1米或者1米乘80，然后在中间有一个洞，然后我的头可以从镜子中伸出来，让自己的头和这个环境，反的一个环境，融合在一块，形成一种人和社会一种非常欢乐的一种关系。
And there is a hole in the middle of the mirror, so I put my head in it, and then you can see the environments around me through the mirror.
对，因为这种关系呢，它可能是整个一个人类的一个就是文明的一个过程里面的一个就是让我们会有很多很未知的人和社会和世界的一种很多未知的一种存在。
And I think it reflects the something unknown in the society, and also the relationship of me and the society.
对，因为那个时候呢，就是在那个时期的作品都是跟这个思考社会的。这个是把头，就是这是很中国的一种就是称量的一种方法啊。那称一个人的一个头的一个重量啊，那反。
And this is the work. How heavy is your head? And I try to weight my head, how heavy it is.
就是你在社会中的一种存在，是有人在赞赏你捧着你，也有人会在踩你，会在一直在压制你。
And this is the work hold me up, treat on me. It's just like it also reflects the me and the society.
对，这个在2000年的时候做过一批这个状语系列，这都这个时候开始和这个站在地球之外来思考这个我们的家园。
And then I started to work on the Li Wei Fo's 2 series, and I start to think that me, myself, and my relationship with the world around me.
这个在30多岁呢，然后我开始和非有关系的一些思考。当然，前面的作品其实也开始和非有点关联，就是它的一个前奏的一个前奏吧，好像是。
When I was 30 years old, and I started to work on the artworks related to Fly.
对，这个作品是第一个和非有关系的这个作品。
And this is the first work that has the relationship with Fly.
就是这个时候我在做的一些行为的表演，会用到一些威亚。那之后呢，其实最后我现场大家是能体验到我的这个威亚的一种状态。那在看到图片还有 图片的时候，其实是把威亚的一个光市场会把它处理掉，所以它会是行为和图片的一个结合。
And from this series, I started to use some props and the crane. And this series is a kind of mix of performance and photography.
对，这也是就是跟跟这个超越重力有关系。
And this is the series that related to gravity.
对，这些都是大概在我30多岁的时候。
And these are the works I did when I was 30 years old.
对，这个是在09年，因为是关于因为中国的变化非常快就是飞行的速度。
So these works reflects how fast changing of China, and also you can see it's a kind of fast speed. You can feel it in my work.
这个是宗教的，就是东方的宗教在西方的一些表演，在空中的表演。我把它命名叫紫气东来，就是东西方文化。因为以前中国我们最早都是学了很多西方的一些艺术理念，西方的一些哲学思想。那我希望把东方的一些这个文化带入到西方的一个空中。
And these works has something to do with the Asian religion, and I also want to reflect it in the Western world to have a mix with the Western culture. So that's why I is in Switzerland in Europe.
这个原来是很多是一种身体的飞行，现在我希望是在文化层面，因为宗教文化它是和现实文化有一致性，同时它有超越现实文化，所以我认为它是一种飞行的文化。
So I think it's I think that's not only in the surface like the flying, and I also want to reflect it in the cultural aspect.
在他40岁以后呢，其实是因为我为什么说就是说艺术它就是生活对我来说，是因为我在2012年在法国有一次在空中掉下来受了伤。
And after why I said when I was after 40 years old, I think art is just life. Life is art and art is life. It's because I did a performance in Paris in 2014 and I was injured.
因为不小心掉到海里面，所以后来断了4根肋骨，在医院里大概有在法国应该有2个月1个多月住院。所以我再重新思考了艺术。
And I restarted to think about what is art because I injured during the performance and I fell into the sea and I broke some bones, I think. So I restarted to think what is art.
所以我明白，其实之后我要做的艺术，其实就是我可能更自由的，就是说没有任何的羁绊的去自由的飞行。
So after that, I started to do the performance very freely and without any limits.
所以后来我会关于太空的呀，关于烟雾的很多，就是不同的任何的元素都可以变成我的飞行的元素。
And also, the elements I use in my work it's all related to fly.
所以后来我去过世界各个地方去，就是跟很多的当地的朋友一起合作，一起在空中飞行有很多。所以重要的是大家都可以在儿时的梦想一样更自由的飞翔大家都很开心。
And then I travel throughout the world to do the performance together with all the friends, and I can fly very freely. in the world.
所以现在我希望我的行为艺术是没有表达，我只要去让所有的回到我们儿时的一种梦想，回到更本源的一种梦想，更开心就 OK 了，所以我认为它就是一个生活，就是我的生活。
So I think performance is just is my life, and it comes back to the dream when I think of in the childhood, and I think it's just a happiness. Yeah.
对，这是在这个疫情期间，然后在北京和太阳一起滑的一个 performance.
And this is the performance I did during the coronavirus period last year. Is how I play with the sun.
这是在我的因为疫情期间不能出去，所以在我的一个小空间里面去拍的一个performance， 然后是一种没有背景的一种放空的一个世界里面来飞的，自由飞的。
And this is the work I did in my own house. 就在你家里是吗？
对。
Yeah, it's in my own house during the coronavirus period. Yeah.
对，就这些，好，谢谢大家，谢谢。
And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Libe, for sharing your dream with us and your dreams with us, Libe. I have to tell you how your work communicates to everybody. There's something very direct and pure about your work, Libe, that goes beyond cultural barriers and speaks to all. There's that feeling of freedom, exhilaration, flight, and it really does truly communicate to all.
他就是说，他赞赏了一下你的作品，然后就是觉得你的作品就是很自由，然后没有障碍，然后在相当于是非常亲近大众，就是这种飞行的这种状态。
对，谢谢。
Thank you.
Adam.
I completely agree. I mean, there's something completely transcendent about just flying and visually, so like performatively above, our daily morass. And I feel like the performance that started us off with healing was a way for us to deal with our context during COVID. And it's fascinating to see everyone having done these different interventions with their own practice and in their own style, and I think that idea of flying above is something that really does connect. Like I connect to it in a very deep way, and we were very lucky to have Li Wei's work in the first Karachi Biennale in 2017, and that's when I first felt that connection, and it remains when I see those photos like that. So.
他就是说，他觉得你的作品就是很超越，然后是用自己的方式，然后包括在疫情期间，相当于是跟大家进行一种连接。
对，谢谢，因为这个就是艾美，然后给予机会，大家这个在疫情期间，然后在网上大家可以共享大家的思想，大家可以一起交流，谢谢。
Yeah. Also, thanks for providing me this chance so that we can communicate together through coronavirus period, and we can, freely communicate through Zoom.
谢谢李伟，谢谢。
谢谢。
谢谢。Thank you.
So Umme Farwa Hassan Rizvi, born in 1990, has a bachelor's degree from Beacon House National University and a master's from National College of Arts, Lahore. Based in Lahore, she makes use of her own body in performance and video pieces. Umme?
Hi.
Hi, Umme.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, how you doing?
Okay, just a few pictures. Nothing big. It's not a fancy PowerPoint presentation or anything. So I will start with how I initially started my practice. I picked up a few artists that I inspired me initially, and I started copying their performances just to put myself in their feet and see how it works out, or what they felt, or how would I feel about it. So this was a performance by Pepelatiris, and I sort of recreated it. Can you guys see my screen? Is it?
Yes.
Is it full screen?
No.
No. How do I do that? Wait, sorry. Okay. Now can you see? Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So great. Okay, I think today is a bad day for screen sharing. There you go. Okay, so this was a performance that I reenacted just to see what, and when I did it, of course, it completely changed the meaning of the performance and the way, I did it. This was, and then again, this was Marina's performance that I copied. I didn't sit there for 48 hours, of course, or more. I sat there for 2. But it was funny because I was sitting there and I was completely expressionless, and the people started assuming that they were supposed to make me laugh or get a reaction out of me, which wasn't the point at all. So that got really interesting. But I get a lot of crowd around me thinking something was wrong with me, and they had to somehow get a reaction or make me laugh. This is one of my performances where I was feeling watermelon, and basically talking about vulnerability and how beneath a hard exterior, there's a very soft, vulnerable interior. And then it went on with the second part where I sort of ate that watermelon and completely destroyed that vulnerability. Then this was my Dulhan series, the Bride series, which started with simply me dressing up as a bride and walking through a very crowded bazaar. And me, in my head, I was thinking, well, I'm a performance artist. I am an actor. I can do this. No big deal. I'll go to the bazaar. I go to the bazaar, and but the moment I got there, the moment I was outside my bubble, it got real. It got real quick. So I just went around, dressed up like a bride. It was very initial stages of the whole series, where I was still, exploring the idea of it. And this is a still that I got out of that performance. And then I have a few other stills where I dressed up like a bride, and I was sort of talking about how in our culture, especially the South Asian culture, brides are supposed to be sort of they're given away, and a lot of girls don't even get a say in this situation. This is again a performance where I sat for an hour or 30 minutes, I think, and just sat there, dressed like a bride, just looked into the camera directly and sat there like a decoration piece. This was done at the Karachi Biennale in 2017, I think, where I was inside the trunk, being the dowry. And then there was a rope series. So I've always, in my practice, had some kind of material that I get stuck to, or a certain topic that I start working on, and then I take it forward. And the rope series started with me acting like a puppet, and then tying myself up with rope, or hanging with ropes, or anything to do with ropes, basically. This is where it started, and different forms of structures. I created different forms of structure. And then this was again, I think it was a 15-hour long performance. There's something I also displayed in Amin's Trojan Donkey. And then I switched to dolls and ropes. So, and then becoming that doll in the rope. This is one of the Sri Lanka performances where I was basically talking about how I was in this bubble in another country. And you know how when you go to another country and you're trying to adjust, but it looks the same, it's somehow it isn't, you don't know how to react. So this is basically me inside that bubble, perceiving whatever is outside. This is a performance I did with a Indian artist, Jatin. It was a very last minute performance where he was like, you know what, you're from Pakistan, I'm from India. Let's do a performance where we're depending on each other and we're standing on a pillar and we're basically bearing each other's weight. And so this was that performance. Again, me putting myself into tight positions or spaces and testing my limits. This was a refrigerator and I was inside it and you could see me through a peephole. This is one of my recent works where I'm playing with the string. I don't know if you guys know about this game, but you basically get a string and then people mold it in different forms. And it's a take on that. This is a video that I would like to show. It's called Sanity Switch, which was not a performance per se, but it was my state of mind, which I think, again, can be perceived as performance. So if it's okay with you guys, can I play the video?
Play the video.
Okay. Can you guys hear the song? So yeah, I think I'm gonna not take any more time. And so yeah, this is
Thank you very much, Farwa.
right.
And I have to mention that we showed this video for when me and Sara curated Lal Jadoo. And the way it was presented was, it was in this box set upon a tripod. And you had to really bend over and get close to the box and see the video through this tiny peephole. So the act of viewing the video became very performative. The way you sort of like encountered this video, it was very sort of intimate, and there was a performative element in it. Adam?
Yes.
No, I completely agree, and I think that there's multiple things that we see recurring, an engagement with materiality in performance, and also a kind of engagement with societal, like the society and life, a quotidian life in a, in certain contexts, especially the Pakistani context. And it's interesting for me, I mean, like when Umme was speaking about marriage, it reminded me of love marriage. I mean, if you would like to tell them about love marriage.
Sure. Me and Sabah Iqbal, I worked with Sabah Iqbal, an artist and sculptor from IBS, and we did something called love marriage, and we took away gender from our faces. So we were both in whiteface and in sort of geisha makeup and sort of neutralized gender. And we got married and the structure was the South Asian marriage context. And and I think I just want to talk about, like, even with Farwa's work, how performance or Dombo's work, Van Olsen's, work, how performance can really be a tool to comment on situations. And again, it can be kind of like a guerrilla action thing where you can do things that can kind of push boundaries. And because of its ephemeral nature, you get away with saying things in certain cultural contexts where it's not so permissible to say those things, and it becomes a way to express oneself.
The next is someone that we know very well, Sara Vaqar Pagganwala, who received her BFA from Central St. Martin's University of the Arts, London, and is a multidisciplinary artist and curator. She investigates notions of the body and identity as a repetitive constant, especially in her performative work, and lots of you probably already know her from all the projects that she's done with independently and with Amin. So, Sara, please.
Shall I?
Yes,
let's try. All right, let's have a go at this.
Oh my God, it's working.
It works.
Yes.
It is.
Go.
All right, so I'm going to start with a little bit of my journey, and we're going to go all the way back. I wasn't always very comfortable doing performance or putting myself out there. I was always intrigued and really did want to investigate in it, but it was always from the back. And the whole story starts a good many years ago, and this was a performance that I was doing, and I'd just be really shy. I was a very shy person. I was an introvert, if you'd like to say. And I'd orchestrate things, and I'd work for the performance, put them together, but never really want to come up front. So this was for the fashion house Xenia and George Orda, but never really had, the courage to come on forth with it. And then, God bless Pam Skelton, who was one of my tutors at St. Martin's, and she really pushed me. I was doing this course called the cross-dimensional course, which had all these different practices put together. And this perhaps marked one of my first performances, which wasn't for a very wide audience. And it just sort of took course from there. And this was more about the semiotics of identities. And again, that's something that I really do end up speaking about a lot in my performances. This perhaps was my first performance that I must have ever done, which was for the public. And this one fine day, I just decided to go out into a parking lot. And that was that. This year, I'm speaking perhaps around 2013. Now, while I speak, if I can, I'd like to play this video because when I just graduated and come back, I started working for my aunt at Art Shock, Shakra Masood, the artist as well. And she'd asked me to send across my work. Amin was at that time curating Fresh for under 30s. And the deadline had passed, and I was like, you know what, I'm still going to just send it through. And that was that. Amin and I never looked back after that. So that starts my relationship with him, and this video being important to mark when we first ever started working. And whilst that video was playing, I was doing this performance live. And again, spoke a lot about body and identity and questioning my limits. One of the things that I quite like doing in my performances is to really test my limit, to see how far I can push it, and to do endurance performances, which are anywhere above an hour long. And thanks to Amin, he really lets us facilitate, he really facilitates that and helps us to experiment with things. And then this went on with many other collaborations with different artists. Here was with Ali Hassan. And this was to do with Sati, where I had burning candles on my head. And again, I'm just showing you guys, I'd like to go on a journey with you guys with all that I've been through. This was for Amin, for Dreamscapes again. And I have a love that I share between art and culinary. And I put them together for this one, where I made this edible body cast of my body. And I decided to cut it up and let other people cut it up and serve it to people and let them eat me. And it carried on where then I did a performance with Shalale Jamil and with Mirchi and Muhammad Ali, where I then took I made these masks of their faces and then made them into edible cake structures, which resembled death masks a lot, which were then constructed and deconstructed and eaten up. Working again with the body a lot. This is a performance that I did at Berward, where I was making skins and reproducing them, although they were paint, but symbolize something much more denser. Here is Adila with Zirak Ahmed, with Towers of Chaos with hers, and The Protractor with mine, and where we're questioning notions of movement through psychoanalysis. Now, this one performance here was, I think, quite riveting and really an eye-opener as to how negligible the line between art and life can be, and how you just need to open yourself up to all of these energies. And I'd like to share a little anecdote here is, you know, how real things can be, and how if one is truthful, like, you know, how Niverda was also mentioning, and how Alexandre was also saying about how there really isn't much difference and everything sort of becomes like a happening. So my grandmother, who would always be there for the openings for my shows, I was planning this performance about a month before she passed away. And surprisingly enough, it was just a few days or so before for the opening, and she was not there. But the night before, I was just Googling body marbling, and I realized that a month into the grave, the human skin starts to marble. And it was so bizarre that I was sort of imitating the same thing that she was going through. And just to say that when you become open and you let these energies in, you sort of become them. And bizarrely, for the first time, I knocked out, which never really happens, but I fell asleep in the substrate in the stub in my performance. This then follows with Limbo, which was again done at the Amin Gulgee Gallery for Amin with the Radioactive Decade, curated by Amin and Nilofer Farouk. And this is me dressed up as a bride, and I'm about, Amin, how tall must have been 11 feet, if not more?
12, 13 feet.
11, 12, yes. And there I am on like a little platform, about 1 by 1. Foot or so, yes, and strapped in with these, you know, suspension belts, which I later found out were of no use. And this was also really questioning my limit and, you know, how without any intoxications, your mind can take you to places I don't think you can elsewise go to. About half an hour or so in, it became quite painful with the jura, with the clothes being really painful and sliding down as well. And I remember during the practice rehearsals, John saying, no, this cannot be done. But Amin's like, you know what, if she has to die, she'll die, and it'll be through a performance. And say, you know what, if you have to go pee, then you go up there and you do a golden shower for everyone. But that's just, you know, the nature of performance. You really sort of, you adopt it, or it adopts you. And this again is also, you know, joining culinary in the arts again, where I made, again, you know, edible pieces of my body, and people were to come and create their own sculpture with them and then take them away and eat them. This is for the opening launch for the first Karachi Biennale. And here was when my trajectory changed a little bit and I started to curate. Thanks to Amin, I was one of the assistant curators for the first Karachi Biennale. And in that too, one of the really important things was that, you know, we had this shared love for performance, and it was extremely integral for us to have a really strong performative element present there. And during the time that we were curating, there was this great opportunity that opened up. And this was with an artist, Sara. And this was through one of our guest curators, Paolo De Grandes. And this was a curated performance that was happening in 6 different countries all over the world and was being aired live for the Venice Biennale. So Amin and I've worked for him, I've worked with him, I've curated with him, and I'd like to share one of these experiences, which was Play Me for the Art Summit, where Amin and I were playing a game of chess with his rules and fragments of his face casted in these really heavy bronze sculptures that we kept on banging and screaming and yelling out at one another. And we went through with another, again, exhibition that happened at Amin's for the outsiders. And I had made this suit, which had this really human skin-like feel to it with latex. And for his solo, again, 7 in Rome, in Machateo, where I was marking, again, dressed up as a bride and marking people with these suspended letters that Amin had drawn up from the ceiling with his algorithm playing at the back. Around this time, I had the opportunity for the first time, whilst I was working at Canvas Gallery with Samira Raja, to curate on my own for the first time. And it was a 1-day performance art show. Amin was a part of it as well, along with all these fantastic people who came from all over Pakistan, who I was extremely grateful to. And that was quite an experience to sort of flip things over and see how it was like. And curating led one thing to another. And then this was curating the Quantum City again with Amin Gulgee and Zarmeena Shah. And again, here, if I can just give you a little bit of an insight, it was against the backdrop of the Karachi Port Trust, which actually opened up after 113 years, I believe, to the public. And our exhibition was housed in 11 containers. And one of the most important things here as well was to work with a strong performance presence to be there. And it was great to have you know, a whole host of these artists, this excellent roster, and to be able to work with them and their visions and combine them into what, you know, to make what the exhibition was. Here is what I did, the crinoline for the Karachi Biennale. Just a little short snippet. And the theme here was ecology. And I was in this crinoline, this metal crinoline, which had bird feet in these little pockets here. But at the same time had this cacophony of all these toys, etc., on these metal spokes, which would make a lot of noise. So every time that they did try and come for the food, or anybody would try and come close, you know, there I would be an obstruction and not let them, to really replicate the times that we're in. And then, of course, as Amin calls them, you know, the Corona Chronicles that I had the privilege to curate with, all started with Lal Jadoo, which actually was supposed to open on the 15th. So we had less than 24 hours to make it from a public affair to go live online. So it was quite an experience because this was also completely a purely performance art show. So it was quite a thrill. There was this crazy adrenaline rush. And shortly after comes the Trojan Donkey, which was curated alongside, again, with Amin and Adam. And this was a little more tightly structured, where we had this virtual performance art happening from people simultaneously all over the world. And this followed with If These Walls Could Talk, which was a silent new media show, again, curated by Amin and myself. And here, you know, it was following all the SOPs, there was cars that went in, and it, like, the whole nature of it sort of became a performance with, you know, since they couldn't get out, you know, there'd be, you know, the lights going on and off, the car lights going on and off, and people honking in anticipation with every film that would come on. And it ends where we are today with Amin and Healing. So I'd like to thank you all, and just to say performance art really is, for me, you know, delegating my body to use as a medium of expression and just to become and just to be. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sara. Thank you so much. And you know what you said about performance, and this is something that I've been hearing through Niverda, Alexandre, Bavard, Vhan, Olsen, Rizvi, and Farwa. It's this act of losing yourself in the moment, and when there's a sort of transcendence that happens and you become it. And sometimes the performance goes in another direction where a surprising thing happens. And I think that's the magic of it all.
Oh, for sure. The energy really takes over you if you let it. And once it comes in, it's sort of...
You have to let it. You not act. That's, I think, perhaps the line between the performing arts and performance.
That's the negligible line.
Perhaps you let it, let the images come in and let it kind of like, you start speaking in tongues. What do you say, Adam?
No, I say that for me, Healing too was a really like a very informative experience because I'd never actually been involved directly in a performance. And for me, I did enter some other place. Right. You know, I felt, and I think if the wonderful Alana Hunt was here, she'd be able to understand this, but I was somehow in the heat and the ritual, I was somehow, you know, transported to like rural Australia, and Amin was some sort of sheep and I was shearing him. I was really shearing him, and I was like violently do it because there was only one thing that I wanted, and the one thing that I was completely focused on and lost myself in, which was removing all the hair from his head. And I found that a very fascinating experience, and it allowed me to understand a lot more from the performer's perspective, what the experience is like. And I think that is crucial. And I think that everyone's been touching on that today.
For sure. I think the energy, like, you know, how Amin was also saying, it starts to dictate its own life and sort of becomes you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Should we move on to Kasim Shaheen? Yes. He's a British visual artist and writer who works across performance, installation, film, photography, and with audience as participants. His work explores various ways of sharing memories and enters the fragile architecture of the space between people. Kasim?
Yes, hello everybody. And thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. Amin, it's a pleasure to be here and be part of this forum. A huge congratulations to you for the book launch and this remarkable body of work and all the collective effort that has been made. Adam, Sara, Jermine, all of you just pulling all of this together. It's been wonderful. I'm just getting to know more about it. And I haven't seen Amin for such a long time, but I'll get to that.
Just as beautiful as always, Qasim.
It's been 20 years. So what is performance art for me? a shape-shifting form that refuses to settle. I think that's really, for me, it's about just embracing that temporality and existing between those spaces that we're all talking about. And I think really that's in a nutshell what it has been for me over the trajectory of my work. But just to take you back, just as Sara did, it's nice to kind of touch base with your roots and where you began. I think for me, it started very privately and in my studio, and I was very interested in apparel and clothes. And this was the late 80s, and in the context of Central St. Martin's, and some of my greatest influences were people like Vivienne Westwood and British designers, and how they were creating a spectacle and theater from apparel and clothes. So that's really where I started. And around the mid-90s, I was sort of discovered by the Institute of Contemporary Arts, the live art department, which was then headed by Lois Keaton. And she really kind of kept me under her wing and allowed for that early development and transition from what I was making in terms of installation, costumes, into the performance of the body and the performance of those materials and that materiality of fashion. I became more and more engrossed by those discussions that were happening at the IC in London. And I remember this pivotal conference on Franz Fanon, who's a psychiatrist and intellectual from Martinique, and is mostly, talked about within the context of his publications, Black Skin, White Masks, and The Wretched of the Earth. And there was a lot of conversations around the nature and politics of contemporary Black performance within a British context, and also across the pond as well. And I remember being, a part of that whole setup and conference, and meeting with people like Stuart Hall and Homi Bhabha and Bell Hooks, Paul Gilroy, all of these what I would say my intellectual parents in terms of my academic training in cultural studies and visual art. So a lot of my understanding of performance was rooted in academia. From then, I suppose, going back to my first meeting with Amin, so that would have been around 2003. And the reason that I had made that trip to Karachi, to Pakistan, was because throughout the 90s, I was exploring my body and art, and like I said, all of these different mediums. I hadn't specifically called myself anything, and I wasn't really medium driven. I was very thematically driven. But there was this idea of a cultural longing to, want to belong. And I think it's not just about my work, but also a whole generation of, of diasporic artists who wanted to in some way touch base with what they understood as their homeland or the motherland and all of those kind of ideas. And of course, we had only understood ourselves through the colonial project and the empire. So everything that I knew about myself was coming from the V&A and from archives, and they were curated in a particular way. And I wanted to go to make this trip and figure things out myself. And that was, that was quite an experience, and that's where I met Amin. And I remember that space really well, and I met some wonderfully hospitable artists and designers, and from all sort of areas of the creative industry. But what was one of the things that I really that struck me during my time in Pakistan was the relationship that we had to the art market as such, or the commercial aspect of art, versus where I was coming from, which was very much at the fringe of the mainstream. And when I started to talk about my art practice, my performance art practice or live art practice in 2003, it was very difficult for people to kind of, people around me at the time to contextualize that or program that. So although there was a lot of intrigue about the work and there was a lot of very healthy discussions about the work, there was no real place for it to be seen or curated or programmed. I mean, of course, I remember being asked to be part of award ceremonies and shows and present maybe a traditional kind of dance. Because I was also training in Kathak as well, but there was no real space of performance art as I've seen it through all of your conversations and how it's evolved over the decades. So that was quite interesting. So yeah, I think for me it's really been about the thing for me in terms of looking at culture from the diaspora has been that I've never really been Pakistani enough to be, I'm not Pakistani enough in Pakistan and not British enough to be British within mainstream work. So it's interesting how that has kind of affected or influenced my practice purely through programming and how my work is seen. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to throw into the mix in terms of performance art and the political context and the cultural context that emerge from it. But yeah.
Yes, Raza Shaheen, I think, you know, the idea of being outsiders, being away, being not belonging is freedom. And I think, you know, going across my trajectory and all the performance artists I've really come across, there's a certain amount of insanity in all of them. You know, an insanity and a sense of not belonging. We become kind of like Greek choruses to ourselves, to our surroundings, to everything we comment, you know, and there's this need to put yourself physically out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think developing that self-awareness, having that confidence within your vocabulary and looking at performance art as a potential tool to explore things and not sort of fixing yourself too much is what I feel that over the course of my life I've sort of learned is, you know, that it is all very much in flux, and I do like that messiness that occurs in art practices where you don't know what it is and you don't want to set it in a particular medium. Also thinking about performance outside of the body, extending your body as architecturally, so looking at yourself, the spaces that we abide in as also extensions of ourselves and portraiture, other people that resemble us physically, emotionally, politically, to become an extension of our being. So looking at collective agencies and not just always thinking about performance art and autonomy, but also thinking about the collective voice, which I think with Amin's work and certainly everything that Sara and Amin and all of you as a team have curated is wonderful to be able to see that idea of the collective coming through, which I haven't been back to Pakistan for well over a decade, so I really do miss that. But when I visited in 2003, there wasn't really much of that. And of course, I do remember Amin and how you were, you know, you were constantly trying to explore performance art, even if it was through your jewelry or your links with the fashion world or the catwalk or all of that, you know, those early sort of memories of what you were trying to do, even with your photographic work as well, I think, or the editorial work that was featured in magazines in the late 90s. I think that's really important to acknowledge as well, because we're forgetting where this all started. And it did start from fashion, and it did start from those magazines. And Pakistan, the creativity or the creative kind of explorations were all happening in fashion photography as well. So that's something to sort of remind ourselves of. But yeah, and then following that, I came back to Pakistan in 2007-8. I was invited as a resident artist at the National College of Arts, and then continued to become an associate professor at the National College of Arts, and also worked with Deakin House briefly. So it's been really interesting. I was working with some fantastic, dynamic MA students under Lala Rook, a fantastic artist and a person. And I think that was a great experience. I think I collaborated with these MA students and created a body of work called Dropping Tears Together, which was shown at Al Hamra Gallery. And that was a durational work that lasted over a period of time. And a few people were coming in and listening to stories while performers were chopping onions and dropping tears and telling their stories about what was happening in Pakistan at the time. So my work has always been very connected to the political landscape, the cultural landscape, of course, gender, queerness, but queerness in a much broader sense in terms of what we, the perspectives from which we choose to tell our stories and the permission we give to people to tell their stories. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Brother, you came to Pakistan in 2003, and that was soon, we'd gone through a period of dictatorship and Islamization, and fashion was a very, very young theatrical medium then. It wasn't, formatted, and it gave a lot of freedom for experimentation, and you can to slip in performative works onto the fashion catwalk, and yes, and I just really remember seeing the works that you brought down. I saw stills and videos of the work, of your own work, and I found it extremely inspirational and moving.
Thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge one more thing, which is my training in Qatar and my relationship to Nahid Siddiqui, my Qatar teacher over the last 20 years. I think it's really important for me to say that because in order to be deconstructive, I felt it was really essential for me to understand what the classical form was, or how we understand the classical. And the classical, as we all know, is also very romanticized and constructed. But I thought that was such a beautiful relationship that I had with Pakistan, and I still continue to have with my teacher, because on the one hand, I was learning this very, very precise form from a particular teacher. And then I was also creating live art, which was completely deconstructive and going against everything that I was learning. So I think that kind of dichotomy was interesting as one in my practice.
Absolutely. Adam?
I think that's, Qasim, I think that's really beautifully said on many levels. I think for me, the two particular things resonate. I think the point that you make about Amin's work with fashion and jewelry and the interrelationship that particular young and exciting context provided for an experimentation with the performative for Amin. And I think that is completely spot on. And I would just say the other thing about hybridity, I think that what you said really resonates to the hybrid experience. I thought it was really beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got Stephen Sheehan, who graduated from Wirral Metropolitan College after obtaining a first-class honours degree in fine art in 2014. In 2016, he obtained an MA in fine art at John Moores University at distinction level. Sheehan predominantly works with film, performance, and video. He has a particular interest in exploring human mortality and repetition. Stephen?
Hello, what's going down?
Yeah, how you doing?
Congratulations on the win against Tottenham, Adam. 3-1.
Yeah, it was an amazing way to start the day. Exactly.
Yeah, seen it before. Come on, yeah. Congratulations. Yeah. Hey, Amin, you okay? Happy birthday, Amin.
Oh, thank you, baby.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, it was really nice. Performance art to me is probably maybe over the years since I've been an artist, it's kind of changed a lot to be in terms of how I look at performance art. So I used to perform a lot of it in public and a lot of it in galleries, but I've kind of taken myself away from that. I really don't enjoy it anymore. I don't enjoy it how it I just don't enjoy that anymore. I don't enjoy how the work sits. in that realm. So I like to take myself off to fields or take myself off to beaches or really isolated locations. And I just like the work now to be kind of maybe about video documentation. And I think it's, for me, it kind of suits the idea of performance, of like this happening or this action in life that never gets really seen by anyone. And we only usually see it through secondhand imagery or secondhand information. You know, I went to a place the other day, and this is probably totally off subject, but I just find it really interesting. I went to a place the other day I'd never been before, and I just noticed a brick wall, and I really understood that I've never seen that brick before. And I thought, like, because I'm always traveling around doing these residencies in a kind of way to kind of see the world, I thought, like, I'm never really ever going to get to see the world at all. And I think that reminded me, I'm only going to see sections of the world. And that kind of links back into the performance and the video documentation, where even if someone's there while the performance is going on, they're never really ever going to get to see the full performance in some way. And I find like the documentation really works well for me if they're able to just kind of view it at their own leisure and view it at their own pleasure, really, anytime, any place, anywhere they are. And I like the idea that they can never get to that moment again of the performance happening. Yeah, so I think performance for me is just this fleeting moment that happens, you know, and either people see it or they don't. Whether it's, you know, it could be about the most absurd thing, it could be about the most simple thing. But performance is just this moment really for me, yeah. And I think that's what performance means to me as well, yeah. It's just this moment that happens and goes. I don't think it's important. I don't think it's not important. It just is what it is. And I think there's something more beautiful in that than existing an idea attempting to exist in this physical form, really, yeah. But maybe the videos exist in a physical form as well, also, you know. But I really champion the idea of just the documentation existing and the performance sometimes not really having a lot of emphasis placed on it. Maybe that maybe seems like contradictory to come from a performance artist, but there's something kind of nice where to just let that performance go into the abyss of existence, you know. And the documentation, it's almost like, you know, when we look through old photographs of birthdays, where we get them out of the attic or we get them out of the cupboard, and we look through them and we get little glimpses back into history about maybe what happened then. But we never truly understand, we never truly really remember the birthday. You know, we can never go back to it and eat the same piece of cake or kiss one of the relatives that we've seen before. It's just that beautiful moments gone forever, you know. And there's something really beautiful and poignant about that. And that's why sometimes, well, that is why now I champion the idea of documentation, because it's just a little gateway back into a memory that we can't remember, you know. You know, that's kind of what performances are for me sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, really. Yeah.
I think that connects very well to healing. There's the healing too, and I actually, something that I've learned a lot from Amin about documentation, that healing too itself was a private thing. Only the people who were participating were experiencing it,
yeah,
and the people documenting it. But I'm able to go to that video, I'm able to show that video to people, and they somehow understand, in a very visceral way, what Amin is about in his practice. And I think that is an amazing thing. I think to capture those ephemeral moments like that is very congruent with what the performative is. And how would we know about these previous performances if they were not documented, you know? And I think the idea of doing your own private ritual, but also documenting it, I think that permeates a lot of the work that we saw for Trojan Donkey and during this period of pandemic as well. So
Yeah, I think there's something there really. Yeah, it depends what you're really coming into performance for as well. You know, I think it depends how the work that you're making. If the work requires an audience, then it requires an audience. You know, so it's but I think the type of work that I make, I'm just trying to kind of make sense of the world around me. You know, and I'm trying to insert that back into the world and some form of bizarre twist on that, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I did healing too, and it was only for documentation. So I was kind of going into your space deeply. It was only purely for documentation, and no audience could be up there. Just, you know, nobody could be up there. Only the documenters could be up there.
Yeah.
So it was strange to be in that space because, again, you know, when you are doing performance work, there's a certain energy you get from the audience. You know, I remember when you were in Paris for Un Coup d'un Soir, I can't pronounce that right, or One Night Stand, and you stood there peeing for 3 hours in your pants in Paris, which I found funny. And the audience reaction to you and, you know, that physicality, and to remove yourself from that completely is fascinating, that you want to go in that. But I want to also add that a huge part of your trajectory also has been video, where you do these short films. So you're very much a filmmaker, and it's very much part of your vocabulary.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like the films are extended performances. The more, like, so a lot of the time when I sit down and look at them, they're almost like a sequence of performances, not necessarily by me solely, but maybe small little actors or passers-by or whatever. But they all come together to make this documentation of a longer performance, in a sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of how, like, you were right to say that. I mean, yeah, that's kind of how they're almost like a montage of performances that come together and in some weird way create like a language and narrative of some sort.
In a very strange, wonderful way. Yes.
Yeah. Just like you could get like 1,000 monkeys typewriting, they say like over 1 million years they'll write a Shakespeare play or something. This may be kind of like what I try to do in 10 minutes, with these.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I think there's a real thirst for humans to attempt to place meaning on life or whatever. So I kind of like to do that with the films where, you know, there's almost like they're ambiguous in a sense, and there's not really like a true underlying tone there, but the viewer itself will come to that, and in a hurry to understand their own immortality will kind of place a meaning on the video itself. Yeah.
Right.
I would just like to, if I could, Omer just messaged the chat. He was actually one of the people documenting it and took some really wonderful photos. So, and for me, that's also part of it. So you can have the multiple levels of documentation. And I think that it was lucky in a sense, but Amin has these wonderful people around him that can document things in a beautiful way. Humayun Memon, for instance, another one of our collaborators who also takes beautiful photos. And, you know, the drone team were wonderful. So, you know, it was a collective action in that sense. And, you know, we were an audience, and it had an embodied, like the ritual had a you felt the healing effect. You know, we each came in with our own specific contexts and needing, you know, specific things. And for me, I could really feel that. And honestly, it is something that actually comes across in video form, which to me is very interesting. It's not something that I would expect that something like that would come across.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So our last panelist, Satadru Sovan, received his bachelor's and master's degree from Visva Bharati University and was a Fulbright scholar at the University of California, Dan UCSC. Based in Delhi, the multidisciplinary artist is the founder and director of Hexi Box, an online and offline performance platform. And I hope you're all well over there and staying safe. So,
is that true?
Best wishes.
Yes. Can I screen share?
Yeah, there we go.
Yep. It will be visible?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Okay. So today's talk is what is the performance for me. So I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to talk about myself because already Alex told about me. So I'm going to talk myself, my aesthetic diaspora discourse about brief about Hexi Box. So I'm coming to what is the performance for me. I feel performance art, I can't consider performance art what I like to say is a behavior art and behavior art application. Self momentum side space improvising practice, because it is not pre-planned, it was improvising, again the space improvising act. It's a time-based action because we can't reproduce the same thing another time, so it's a time-based action. And always a relationship between the space, object and the body. Communication tool utilizing the body, space, action means artistic expression. The binocular narrative. Behavior art practice happen when the artist's own body, their own practice, become a part of own work. A communication tool that utilize body, space, and action in artistic expression with the audience. It was earning and for being witness of the group of people. Behavior art is the intimacy. I feel whenever I give a talk, whenever I show the slide, I always told to my viewer, come to my real performance and feel me, touch me, and take my fragments, because that's only the essence of the performance art. When you saw the reproduction, the photography or the video, it could be much more decorative, but real performance art, not decor. It's a real time act. So this is another name is a life art. So I feel that's very important. So I'm coming to our Hexi Box. It's a very much new. We started 2017, and just five years we run this collective, and we especially work on behavior art practice and platform. We work on health, HIV, education, art and culture, heritage, human rights, and human kindness and environment. This is our work. And whenever we organize an event, we mount the catalog. So this is the first catalog we did last year, the pandemic time. We did 82 artists, international artists. We give them a exhibit their work, and after that discussion. So now few of my artists also here. Raphael is here. So I'm going to few slides of my catalogs. So this is the few pages. Yeah, here is a list of the artists around the globe. Second work was we did a cross-cultural connection. We did a Mexico versus India. So we did a 10 artists from Mexico, 10 artists from India. It was a 4-hour-long project. So this project was basically done by Hexi Box and another organization called Performance Latte. They are from Mexico. So this is the catalog. There's a third project we are doing the cataloging. This is the Asia project. So here we did 6 countries: Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Iran, Philippines, Taiwan, Myanmar, and Vietnam. So these all countries we did the project, and we published the catalogs. This is the catalog. Now I'm coming to my work. So my work basically from gender practice, human rights. I'm not going to talk many more aspects of my work, because I did many of the projects from museum, many of the Biennale and art fair, but I'm not going to show all the projects, but I'm just showing the last 2 years my work and how I'm developing my work between the light and shadow and the fog. So I'm using that kind of material about my gender, sexuality, expression, and identity. So this is the work I did in 2019. I was invited to one university. I was give the workshop and I was stay 1 month. It is a project with my student. I was perform over there with and that time I was creating the what, because hexidexy is a no meaning. It's a created meaning. It's a self-created word. I think that artists creating a painting, artists creating a song. So why not we create a word? So that's the invention to our word. So there's the first word, heterohexy. It's I was very impressed about Leonardo Vinci, like Michelangelo's figures. So, but I cannot be Michelangelo's body, but I'm very chubby, short guy. So I was kind of homage to Leonardo Vinci or Michelangelo. So this is the work. Then the next slide is I think Myanmar is a festival I was invited. So and we are there I think for a week. And 3 times they changes their decision. Because the organization don't give the permission to their destination. So we are very confused to where we can perform. So last they got on one park, and we have to do very short time. We have to think, and we have to do your one work. So I was collecting some local materials. And always I use the light. So I was choosing the night. So people said, "Oh, you're doing night, so nobody can see." So the timing was a half an hour each artist, and can't imagine my performance was 2 hours long, and the other announcement going on, and nobody going to see their performance. And whenever I go their country, some country, I love to give the workshop. So I give the young students workshop and engage with my work. This is I think Nepal Kathmandu festival, Kathmandu International Festival is I think Taragaon Museum. I was performing, and the other work is in a Panoti village. The same part of the performance I was performing, and these are the photograph done by one famous Chinese photographer. So we are the collaborative artist, and I always do the collaboration. So here I take part with one Nepali artist and one Bangladeshi artist. I was collaborating with my performance. This is HIV. I did another performance. Oramori is in Mexico. I was there in 3 months. I was invited. So this is in Centario. Is a space. Is a gallery. So I did a 1 hour performance over there. This is the same space. I collaborate with one girl. His name is Sophia. So we both doing a performance. So this was in online performance festival in New York. We did online festival. I used mirror and light. I think this was in yeah. It's a body. Sorry. Performance body in Instagram live performance. They saw my images and they sent the invitation to do the live. And first time I'm doing the Instagram live. I was like comfortable to do like that. So I was so confused. Because I just be on my click on my mobile and I'm doing, and I don't know why people are joining or not, because I could not see anything. I'm doing on. So, and when I stopped, I saw that I think 1,000 people as like my thing, and they want to ask us to give the whole documentation, and they publish the CD. So I was so surprised that because I don't know their response. This was a festival called Tree. It's from in Germany. I was invited to work on a 1 hour performance in a 10 screen, like they going to exhibit everybody's screen together. So interesting festival. I never worked with a tree. So first time I was working with a tree, and I put it in the room because of COVID time. So with the light. Here I always playing a mockery, like how I can here is a unknown margin, because I want to cross the margin, because I don't know the margin, because in COVID time we are crossing the very paranoid space. So our mental state was not there. So I always try to understand what is our mental state and how we can drag. So this kind of with the light and the voice and the sound, I want to try to trap them. This is also part of another work. I think it's also exhibited in Mexico online festival. This is a 2-part. This Pride Parade happened in our dialogue box. I did a safe identity. My performance. I was did. This is an Iran festival. I think it's the biggest festival of the light, and I was lucky to invite the 4th edition, and they published a CD and book. I'm so lucky, and it was I think 30-minute long online performance, and I give it to them in running a CD. So this is another work. This is in a Punjab University museum. They invited me to do the live performance and a discussion. It was 2 hours discussion about performance art, and again the pandemic time, how you deal with the artists, and how the vocabulary going to hit another language. So I also a member of Lock Unlock. Lock Unlock is a unique event going on. It's a Dogmar going to and Hector Kona, the main people to organize the event. There is a 10-member, and we always invite the 3 artists, international artists, in a month. 2 days 1 day we perform, and 1 day we do the discussion. So I was lucky to be a board member. So I'm doing this performance in that box. This was in, I think, Siberia. I did this. This is in pandemic time. I was working with light and sound. So this is my curator. I'm lucky to work with Kai King. Kai King is a very famous curator in China and Singapore. So this is I think 2 months continuously you have to upload 1 performance, and not the previous performance. You have to have the camera, and there's the date. So I think 200 artists was like uploading their pictures every day. Two performance, the morning and evening, to this kind of revive their brain, so they can active, they can engage with their practice. So I think 50 artists got selected for the book. So I'm lucky to get printed my work. So this was a few images and glimpses. So this is my brief for myself. I'm basically a painter and visual artist, but I go to US and study over there. I'm lucky to study new media, and Christina Paul is my teachers who write the first book of new media, and we came to visit the Namjoon Park studio. So it is very lucky for me to see his work and practice. And my teacher was like Beth Steffen in Illinois and Ed Asborn. Illinois do the video performance, and Ed Osborne do the sound performance. So I'm so lucky to, and Beth do the 360-degree camera performance. He's a, I think, queer artist. marriage. She got married with Annie Sprinkle. Annie Sprinkle was a, I think, porn model, and after that they quit and they got married together. So each marriage ceremony was their performance, and I was lucky to involve their practices, see the whole scenario. So this is my journey. I think when I like 2.5 years going to kindergarten, the first my like theater, I do the theater with Sukumar Rai. I think you guys know the Satadru Rai's father. So I did a play. That time I don't know that one day I could be a performer. That's a journey. I start in the theater, acting itself. And then I go to art college, Shantiniketan. Then I 93, I joined the Shantiniketan. 94, I start learning from Badal Sarkar, the famous theater artist. I take the workshop. That's a very fantastic experience to Badal Sarkar. He's no more today. And then my idea was different. I was do the social work in the Rotary. So I used to perform at the train, collecting money to help the poor people. So this experience is different, and I don't know the performance art. Then when I pass out, I was go to Nepal to do the one workshop. Then I meet Yanji Singh and Zeri Gordon. Yanji Singh is Buddha dancer. Then I to understand her, the how is a performance art. She first told, you feel that you're doing with a canvas. Canvas is a white and height, but here is one more thing. Here is a white space, and you never feel that it's a stage. Everywhere is stage. You can pass through your viewer. You can touch them, and the negotiation of the space and negotiation of the viewer. It's not that you can touch anyone. So you have to negotiate them to allow you to communicate to your body, your eyes, or your things. And another thing she told that how you never like I also do after that the before performance art do a performance. I do meditation like just sit and I just go inside to mine, and then I go to the space and I don't know, and I can't see anything. I just go through whatever my heart says. I just go around with my object, and I was in another world. I don't know, and sometimes I say, "Oh, it's time is over. You have to go." But I can continue. I can continue. So that's kind of things I do. I'm very much bad, and till now I think 243 performance I did in a short period. Like performance art is like my like a cup of tea. I every time I have to do the behavior art. I feel the behavior art because everybody doing the performance every day, every moment. So I take that point of view. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
thank you so much.
Invite me. I'm so glad because before I hear everybody's idea and knowledge, I was thinking that, oh my God, they're diamonds, they're gold. I'm nothing for them. So I'm so glad to take part.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. And you know, the works that you did with light were absolutely gorgeous. There's a sort of transcendence. It really was very mystical, the works that you did with light. And yes, it's a battle with fear. And yes, your body has to take up the empty space around you. And I just found it incredibly moving. And also what's incredible about you, Satadru, is the energy that you put connecting the world together through your platform, and how much energy you put, bringing different performance artists and their works and putting them forth for people at large. And I truly, truly do appreciate and respect that, Satadru. You're a force to be reckoned with, Satadru Sovan.
I completely agree. I mean, I completely agree.
Thank you so much.
No,
Thank you so much.
To be reckoned with. And now I'd just like to use this opportunity to thank all the wonderful panelists who shared this Day With Me, Niverda, Alleck, Alexandre, Bavard, Vhan, Olsen, Dombo, Sara, Vaqar, Pagganwala, Umme, Farwa, Hassan, Rizvi, Kasim Shaheen, Sheehan, and Satadru Sovan. And it's wonderful. This whole conversation was just incredible. I mean, you know, the act of transcendence, the act of losing oneself, you know, performance being the other, something else, something beyond rules, something beyond comprehension, where perhaps the artist themselves does not truly understand what is happening, and it has a sort of logic of itself, and it takes you somewhere, even if you start off with a structure. And I would also like to thank people who have helped me put this catalog together, especially the writers, Lionel Manga, who's this incredible intellectual from Cameroon, who I was very happy that he wrote this incredible essay for the catalog. Brigitte Hosier, an academic, a performance artist based in England, who wrote essays for me. Of course, my wonderful curator, Adam Fahy-Majeed. And also the documenters who were there for Healing too, which were Humayun Maiman, Bilal Gori, the man who did my video, and Umar Abdusam, who did wonderful stills for me. And I would really like to thank all of you for sharing this day with me and putting forth your own perspectives on what performance art is for you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing this day with me. I really
yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amin. Thank you.
Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Amin.